are you guys having anybody?
Yeah.
Thursday, the Thursday. So Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, really. I brought that from home to the fan. Yeah,
I have like two in my garage.
I remember.
We could just strap them to our neck.
I've got one of these things. Like when I walk the dog, in August.
Nigel, my partner, we're going to Brazil in December. His cousin in November. Brazil is. We think this is hot. It's hot and always it's different. So I thought of buying around 10 of those things and giving them out to them during the wedding.
Oh, that's a good idea.
No, I think indoor, but
That's right.
yeah.
That's at the beginning of summer. They're the
Beginning of
opposite.
their
Yeah.
start spring, their they have 12 months.
Oh.
No, it's the end of spring.
Because they were talking about that airplane that was it Brazil that
Yeah,
crashed, and they were talking about de-icing. Oh, that's
Yeah, we fly to South Africa all the time. Each city, it's a 4-hour drive. We have flown there once for 1 hour. If you like to drive the countryside, I mean, it's been my fifth trip. I've been to Brazil twice in a year. And now again in the Olympics. But we're in the wedding, so that's supposed to be a great I'm an American. He doesn't speak the language, so please don't ask me to say anything.
Yeah, don't end up marrying somebody, cousin or something.
Yeah.
Did that work?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
When I do with Tommy, it was a big
Yeah.
I'm not voting that either. It's just voting that thing.
Oh, really? I'm not voting.
Hello.
Oops.
Oh, yes. Oh, good night.
It's a little too dark.
Yes, we can see. Well, I'm expecting that the low attendance is related to a program on television in an hour and a half. So, and I'm told we will end on time tonight, but we never do we? So with that, I want to call the meeting to order, please. Get your cookies and your water. And we will begin. So I'm used to a screen. There it is. If you haven't already, please check in with Slido. It's redundant, but please do it. We have nothing major to vote on tonight, but please do it. Our agenda is should be familiar, but we need to approve this agenda, so I'll accept a motion to approve. And your name, Chris Campbell. And a second? And Dan seconded, and nobody wants to disapprove it? Thank you. Moving forward. Express Robert's Rules of Order. All right, hey, welcome back. We didn't meet in August. Did you miss us? We missed you. A lot's been going on. So we last met in July in this room, and we have minutes from that meeting, and I know you've all read them and digested them, so we'll take a motion to approve minutes of the July meeting. Chris and Bob, thank you. All right, moving along. I know we have some new visitors tonight. One in particular hasn't been here for a while, but Amy, please introduce yourself and the neighborhood you're in. I'm just looking at you. I'll start with you.
Please stand
When you
up.
finish your cookie.
Great timing.
Yep, I did that.
Hello, my name is Patsy Marino. I serve as the co-chair of the West Palm Neighborhood Foundation.
Thank you for coming, Vista Las Palmas. Any other visitors tonight? I see some guests I haven't seen in a while from our special programs department. Thank you for being here. Anybody else? Okay, very good. It's September, we'll get back slowly. Moving on, Mayor, wow, that was fast. Now it's your turn.
A little bit sad about my audience, but
Well,
I got the best.
You got the best.
you've been Trump, as it were.
Hi, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Hello. I was not at the July meeting, but I gave an excellent report, didn't I? Yeah, okay, thanks. And I was in London, yes. So welcome back from break. I did just want to acknowledge before I start, we have 4 of our firefighters who are out fighting the line fire. So let's hope they're well and come back safely and succeed and get beaten this fire. So, but I think they've been there for 2 days and are there indefinitely for now. Okay, so since we had our last meeting was on the same day as the 1 PS, there was some things that happened that I'm going to report on. First, I know there's been the topic of tree trimming that came up, and that has been delayed for downtown. There is a safety issue, but there is also a aesthetic issue and a wildlife habitat issue. So, but that will end up coming back. Also, and I don't know if Chris is going to talk about it, we have moved forward with Measure J to remove the sunset. Will be on the November ballot, but the ballots drop in October. I will say this is probably the most important thing that we can do in our city, given it is over 10% of our budget. And in order to move forward with our new fire station, our convention center upgrade, our library renovation, all of those are going to be funded by Measure J. And the reason we're doing this now is basically we need to ensure that we have funds for 30 years, at least, to be able to fund the bond measures for these projects. Similar, next year, when we want to look at hiring staff or firefighters or police, that's a 40-year commitment for the city. And so it is not something we can say, let's hire someone, but in 10 years, our budget may drop by 10%. I'm allowed to advocate, actually. So there is a website, a Citizens Committee website. It is Yes on Measure J 2024. Yes on Measure J 2024.com. You can go take a look at that website. There's a lot of information there. There is a place to donate, and $5 is helpful, $10, and there's a place to endorse and hopefully support it. And this group, it probably has the most impact on the community because you represent the community. And this is a voter initiative. I'm happy to answer questions on it. I know that there are lawn signs in the back. The most important thing is getting the word out about Measure J and the need for this. Again, this is not a tax increase. It is exactly where we're at now. Nothing will change. And we did do a study. I think 60 to 70% is funded by tourists. But this is what now accounts for $22 million a year of our budget. And of course, we have the community initiated projects happening now. I know the board may want to say something later on that. We did a test this summer for the Shop Local program. I don't know if anybody paid attention, but it was a great program. The city funded it. Basically, you buy a gift card. We gave you a 50% bonus to use at our local stores that signed up for it. And it's a great way to help support local stores during the summer times, which is slow. If it's successful, we may look at doing this in the fall for our Palm Springs Holidays program. We did Palm Springs Holidays last year. We're looking at doing it again this year to help encourage and promote all the different holiday events that are going on in Palm Springs in December for the residents, but also to try and eventually build up potentially a tourist attraction, because there's no conventions and conferences, and usually the first week of December we're busy, and then Christmas we're busy, and those weeks in between are kind of very quiet. for our economic development. And we have a lot going on, concerts and Village Fest is our own village, holiday market. So that's happening. We also passed a rule on encampments. So we have a new ordinance that goes into effect when the Navigation Center opens, which is expected to be September 30th, I think is the unveiling date for the Navigation Center. Our encampment ordinance now says there will be no encampments allowed within the city. In public property, encampments are, the tent groups. And a lot of that was basically for, there was public health issues. There was some drug issues, and there was issues with the neighbors. We have also done a slightly different ordinance in other cities because we are banning sleeping on public property only if there is a bed available. And so this is something that's very different. Other cities, the Supreme Court has ruled you can ban sleeping anywhere on public property. Our city council felt that you need to have a place for people to go if you're not going to let them be on public property. What we are doing, unlike other cities, is we are really investing in having shelter and affordable housing. We have the 50 overnight beds. We have the new 85 modular units, which is temporary housing. That's what opens in September. Those are sort of mini apartments with their own bathroom and kitchenette. We've got some set aside for families, for traditional youth. You're allowed to bring pets there. And then we have affordable housing. We've had 2 open this year. The Monarch, Vista Sunrise 2 has also just opened, although I don't know if it's officially announced yet. And then Ala will open next year. We also did something unlike other cities. We allocated so far $2 million for a tenant-based relief program. We did this last year. This may come back this year to stop people from losing their homes. We've helped 450 families and individuals by giving them $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 from becoming homeless, just so that they can pay a few months rent or fight eviction fees. So that encampment ordinance will go give our police officers also the tools that they need to help clean up some of the areas and focus really on getting people who are willing to accept help into housing, and the people who will continue to give tickets to continue to help people get home if they need to, if they have a loved one, help people get into social services, and then for people who are criminals, be able to address that separately. But it gives a great tool for our police. I know we're going to have a conversation on this later. We did pass a rule allowing co-owned managed houses, which is what Picasso has. I did not support this. For the record, we had 5 homes. We now can have another 25, I believe. They do have to follow certain rules and regulations, which are going to come back at some point. I'm not sure when all of those come back. The same as vacation rentals, which we'll see how that goes. They can only have certain number of, you have to have bedrooms for everybody and only 4 daytime guests. We'll see how, if they try and fight that. But that was allowed. Yes.
So what are the benchmarks from that decision? What measurements will take place when? In terms of a year or 6 months, or how will that be?
It's a 3-year program, at which time we can revisit. I mean, obviously it becomes very difficult to take it away, which is what the case was with the existing 5 homes. And the question is whether we allow any more. One of the things that came up was we were going to allow this to go for 3 years and then would review it. And now we made sure a change in the ordinance that says we cannot expire until we actually review it, because otherwise you can all of a sudden have a free-for-all. They do have to meet they can't go in places where there's caps. There's a bunch of other regulations in that. Also in July, we had our first joint meeting with the Agua Caliente Tribal Council in 6 years. And I don't know if people saw it. It was a great meeting. We each did 4 presentations and very much in sync on policy and different activities that each of our governments are doing. So they talked about their Agua Caliente Cultural Museum. We talked about our focus on arts and culture, which is something I've been pushing in our city with all of our museums and film festivals and dance and theater. They talked about their tribal food and beverage tax. I don't know if people are familiar, but there is a rule which says if the tribe collects sales tax on their property, they don't have to remit that to the state. So what the tribe has chosen to do is to start collecting sales tax. I think it's only food and beverage or businesses that are on their property. They still pay the city the share that we would have gotten regularly from the state. In fact, they pay us a little bit extra. But the rest of it, instead of giving to the state, they're keeping local. They're going to give some to businesses, some to help the community and other things. So that was something they talked about. They also talked about something interesting. They have a Native American curriculum at the high school, I think for all third graders and eighth graders. They've had 17,000 students go through it. It is a model. I'm not sure how many places in the country do this, but it is an excellent program where they teach Native American history, particularly related to the Agua Caliente tribe. And then we talked about COD, which is still scheduled to have groundbreaking in November and opening in 2027. They will give our high school kids the opportunity for dual and concurrent enrollment, which are two different things. They also give each PSUSD school kids 2 years free tuition. The other thing which they're doing this now actually, but obviously it'll be when there's a full campus next to the high school, it'll be great. They're also doing, in addition to an architectural degree, they're going to be doing a bachelor's in casino management. And community colleges are allowed to offer bachelor's programs if they're not offered by the UC or CSU schools. So this will be the only program like this in California. There is one other one in Nevada and somewhere in the South. And this is going to be working in partnership with the tribe. We will be the only one that works in conjunction with the tribe. And there's actually 175 tribes in California that have casinos. And it's not just for tribal members, but it's for anybody who wants to get this degree in casino management or is in a casino and wants to advance themselves. So we will now start to have a model of a community college that people actually travel to, which is quite unique. And the same with the 5-year architecture program in conjunction with Cal Poly. So they're doing some really good things there. That is interesting. We also talked about our general economic development. Our economic development director calculated we have $3.5 billion worth of projects going on in our city right now. A lot of that is the airport, which is still in works, COD, but then Thompson Hotel, which is still almost open. I will just explain so people know the North Tower is actually ready to be opened. What happened is that the fire suppression system is connected to the South Tower, and it wasn't considered safe to be able to open the North Tower without getting the South Tower up to speed, not fully ready, but so that it didn't cause a danger. So they are moving very fast, hopefully going to open this month and finish the whole thing at the end of this year. We also, I don't know, has anybody heard of the Forever Maryland statue?
What? What's that?
So, just so everybody understands, we were going to go through with a plan that would vacate Museum Way and to potentially allow for the placement permanent or ongoing of Forever Maryland. Part of what this required in our agenda was that PS Resorts be responsible for future litigation. The city has already had to pay, is liable for $350,000 to their lawyers, in addition to what we had to pay our lawyers. So a few days before the meeting, PS Resorts came and said, we don't want to be liable for this. Our business is to promote tourism in the city. We are willing to move the statue to the downtown park. We still do want the street vacated. That agreement was made now between PS Resorts and the Crema people, and the city did not object. This was not the city's decision to do this. This was PS Resorts and CREMA. CREMA is the Committee to Relocate Maryland. So it will move to the downtown park. They've identified a location. I think they have to go through some various tests, make sure it's structurally sound, talk to the to the park designer, make sure that works. But that is the plan to happen by March of 2025. The good news is for people who like Maryland, it will still be downtown. It should be a very highly visible location. The good news is for people who want that view corridor of the museum, it will be there. In fact, I think it will be better without traffic to have a pedestrian going down. Personally, I never thought it should have had traffic, but I liked having the open walkway. For people who don't like Maryland at all, you can't win everything. I'm sorry, we did approve money, $6 million to do new pickleball courts in Duluth. That will have 24 courts, I think, including a tournament court, which is also a handicap tournament court. It's also a handicap court, allowing for wheelchairs. So this was funded $2 million from Measure J, and then the bulk of the rest of it was Quimby funds. For people who don't know, Quimby funds are paid by housing developers to help build parks. So all these developments that we've seen, Vibe and Elon and Cody, they put in money to our parks. So that's where the bulk of that gets funded from. We also, just for people who are animal lovers, we passed there was a big problem with our animal ordinance where if 30 days after adoption, the original owner could still come back and demand that the animal shelter get their pet back for them. Keeping in mind that they already keep the pets for a certain time, their average pet is kept already for 2 or 3 months before it's adopted out. So this was like an owner coming back after 4 or 5 months and saying they want their pet back. They can still go to the adoptive family person and deal with them, but it doesn't require the animal shelter to be the mediator, which helps them get pets adopted better, because nobody wants to adopt a pet if they feel like I got to fall in love with it in 30 days, get it back. So that's something, one of our ordinances that was from 1979 or something that we finally updated. We're going to talk about blue zones. I know that another favorite topic. I am just going to mention the change that happened so that people understand. Last time they came around, it was going to be millions of dollars. They gave a presentation which did not go over very well. A lot of questions raised. This year, Riverside Health has come back to the city and said, we're going to fund this program. They're asking, I think, for $60,000 a year. And we have studied this. We've analyzed this. They're going to hire 4 people locally to run this program. So it will have people who understand our community. They'll go through a 9-month period of what does the community want out of this program. There's interesting things because when you look at their glossy presentation that tries to fit every city into one, it doesn't work. When you look at health things that we want, I can tell you, this came up recently, we're looking at more grocery stores in our food deserts. If they can help get a grocery store in the North End, it's worth $180,000 over 3 years. We've talked about shade, which is more important now than ever in our parks, in our downtown, in just our neighborhoods. That is a whole project in and of itself. There are grants out there, there's different options, there's art. That is another project. And then of course, we have a lot of our, disadvantaged community has difficult access to healthcare. Some of their things in terms of social, I think we have good. We have so many robust organizations helping, but there are members of our community that are alone and lonely. And so that's where that's at. They hopefully will the plan is to hire 4 local people that are respected in the community that will get feedback from everybody as to how this is developed. So that's what changed in that.
Question?
Yes.
So 60 grand over 3 years?
60 times 3. And we don't pay any until next year.
That the city pays?
Yes.
Per year.
$60 per year for 3 years. And I think the first payment will come in July of '25. And I think they're putting up, Riverside Health has gotten grants for something like $40 million for us, Coachella, and Banning, or I can't remember exactly. On council this week, there's actually one thing on our consent that is like my favorite thing of our whole agenda. The city has done a $1.6 million award to Desert Arc, people familiar with Desert Arc, to do landscaping, maintenance, and trash removal at the airport. And there's a special regulation, which is, as long as it's a fair and good price, they don't have to go through the same procurement process that everybody else does, but this helps a local nonprofit and disadvantaged members of our community earn a living, generate revenue for a project that we actually need done. So that's my favorite thing. My not favorite thing is the Prescott Preserve, which for those of you who know, I do like Prescott, I shouldn't say that. It's a complicated subject, that's what I meant. They went before the Planning Commission to do a minor modification to be able to move forward with their plans for the Prescott Preserve. They then, the Planning Commission added some requirements to that process. However, the Homeowners Association and the Desert Chapel have appealed that decision to come back to City Council to not approve this minor modification. So this is a public hearing. So this will come, so I can't give a real opinion on this publicly, but will now come before the city. The public is welcome to speak and give input, and then City Council will make a decision on that. We're also doing a new update to the city process for grants and grant management and fund disbursement. So this will just add a new level of requirements for how the city gives out when we give out funds to different organizations on what they're required to do, how it's paid out over time, et cetera. A couple of things that are coming up. I mentioned the Thompson Hotel. I think it's very close. The Navigation Center, I think their main opening is planned for September 30th. Vista Sunrise 2, as I mentioned, is the affordable housing at Sunrise by DAP. I think has started to open, but that's going to have its full opening. We are having the Racket Club and South Palm Canyon Road Diet meetings. Denise has all the information. I think there's 3 for each.
There's 3, and they're starting, there can be 3 for each. The first ones are starting next week, and there's information in the back.
Okay, the information's on the back, and this is very important. Racket Club is in my district. There's a lot of speeding. There's a lot of issues with, there's accidents. Some people do not want a road diet. Some people do not want this at all. So it's important to have community input and different options. And this will allow potentially for bike lanes, for turning lanes, other things to help slow down traffic. We have had our parking meetings. This is mainly for downtown parking. We've had 3 of them. There is a 4th one at 7:30 on Zoom, 7:30 a.m. Thursday on Zoom. And this is really to discuss downtown parking and what we can do to make it better. The organization that is doing it is fantastic. It is not about paid parking. It is really about how do you do hours? How do you try and get people into our parking lots? What can we do to make them better signage? How can we make them safer? How can we make them more, people know how to get to them? How do we deal with our employees downtown? How do we deal with handicap parking, with ride shares? How do we keep things moving for the businesses? So they've done a study initially, and we have plenty of parking downtown. The issue is making sure during peak times that it moves properly and people know how to get to it. And if anybody has tried to find our downtown parking underground garage, you know what I'm talking about. And there's probably some people who haven't really figured out how to get out of there, and they're still there. But
Last week, that was me last week.
Yep, that's this.
27 years, and I'd never been there. Somebody told me how to get there and finally went down. That was you after lunch, and I got stuck down there for like 10 minutes.
Yep. That's how you should come to the parking meeting. So they did talk about a lot of very interesting things that are not super expensive to get, that, paint, lines, public art, whitewashing, things like exits. Signage is a big deal downtown. So all of that is being done. There's one more meeting. They're going to come back to the city in October with the results, and hopefully council can make some more decisions on that. So just to reiterate, they did not promote public parking, paid parking. They said the only time this potentially ever makes any sense in a city like ours is with special events, which they're not promoting it. It's not being discussed, but basically from a sustainability point of view, we also want to try and avoid a lot of single-use cars downtown. So part of our issue is looking at ride shares and other things. For those of you who don't know, September 18th is the Chamber of Commerce Taste of Palm Springs and Business Expo. It's a great event. It's at Indian Canyons? Indian Canyons, $30 wristband, lots of food, booths. I think there's music, isn't there? Yeah, I would definitely go if you haven't been. I think there's like dozens of restaurants giving out tastes. It's really fun. For those of you in District 2, my community meeting is going to be Monday, the 16th, 5:30 p.m. at Vista Del Monte, because I know how much you like to hear me speak. And I haven't seen you in a long time, so, but that's then. I think that is everything. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Scott,
Jeffrey.
we know each other very well. Let me tell you about the golf course preserve. There's not what you're saying, think it's saying. There's a lot of hidden things that are going on that are contrary to the rules and regulations set forth in the planning department for construction, and they're not being held to it. 2 years and 2 months, this thing should have been settled if they have just answered a few simple questions and have an engineering report. Nobody's against it. We want them to follow the rules and regulations that everybody else is supposed to follow in this great city. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Jeffrey, I was at the same party meeting that you were at, and I neglected to ask one question, which was that they did the study in May, right?
Yes.
Which is clearly off season. Is there any, and they said that they're going to do the final report by October, which means it doesn't really bring us into high season. Are they ever going to do a study during high season to recalculate those usages?
It's an excellent point, but I think one of the things that when you look at it is when she brought this up in the beginning, is that it still shows, even in May, the times and periods where you have, and locations where you have very high usage. And then it showed how low it was most of the time. It was like in the 20%. And so I think their calculation was that we still have plenty of parking. It is getting out of those high areas. This is a baseline report, so it is designed to be redone over time. And their recommendations, I believe most of their recommendations, and Patrick can also answer this, will actually apply no matter what they show. I mean, if they came out and said, we gotta have paid parking, that would be a different thing. But I think they're saying they're making the garages accessible, the wayfinding, the potential time limits, the reparking ordinance, which stops people from parking and then moving 10 feet, parking again, handicap parking, all of those things I think apply no matter what. And so that's how I think they're going to move forward, and they'll make the recommendations to council. I think we can start a lot of these things now and maybe do a re-study again in a couple of years to see how it makes effect.
I have a question about the homeless. When police find an individual trying to sleep on public property, and there's an option for a navigation center bed. What if the individual refuses to go? Yeah,
They can get a ticket, but I think the idea is really that we have to to avoid people just choosing to sleep. And I think the way our police have explained it to me, and I can say it better, is that by getting more people off the street into services that want it or use it, they're much better equipped to help the people who may be resistant or may have other issues or something like that. So that is really where this has gotten. People can sleep, if they can find a place that is private, they can do it, but they can't be sleeping on our streets and parks. So I think, what also I will say that makes us different, and this not in every one country, I think our police, their policies and procedures and just their personalities is far more compassionate than probably any other city in the country. And so I think that's how, the chief has directed them, and I think that's how all the officers are operating. And that this is unlike Grants Pass, which is really where this Supreme Court decision on. I mean, to me, their decision was inhumane. It goes down to freezing cold temperatures, and I think they have one bed for every 250 people. Our goal is the idea. Now, what we all also said is that if we fill up our beds, we got to figure something out. And I have the feeling that if we can keep our continuum of care moving to get people into permanent housing, that is the best thing we can do. The other thing that a lot of the studies have shown us is that people become homeless, the more time they spend on the street, the more likely they are to have mental health issues or potentially drug issues or get harder back into a home. So the housing first policy is something that I believe very strongly in. And it's not, it sort of makes sense. If you're sleeping on the street, it's gonna affect your mental health. So I think that is really what the policy is. There is a rule and give tickets, but that's not the goal, is to find. Yes.
Do you happen to know the timing roughly on the new courts at Duluth, the new pickleball courts? Repeat the question.
The timing for the new courts in Duluth, I think it's supposed to be the end of next year. I can't remember. I think the plan was I shouldn't answer this. Jasmine, do you know?
I think it's 2026.
2026, okay. Early 2026, yeah. So that's the plan. And of course, we're still going under our Parks Master Plan and all these other things going on. We do have a new temporary interim Parks Director, Gloria Lyon, who's on the Planning Commission, was also our temporary Public Works Director, and they'll hire someone else soon. Yes?
The casino degree at CUNY sounds great. The idea that people coming in to take that program. What's the status of student housing?
Great question. There is none. It is a big issue because that is really where the funding does not exist. But this idea of the BA programs at a community college is not that common. There aren't a lot of BAs that aren't offered. So this could force it, that there is empty land there. I shouldn't say empty land. There is land that doesn't have current plans on it. So there may be some option there for other types of housing or whatever. Generally, what the president has said is that for them to be in the housing business in a community college is quite difficult because it's not like a 4-year campus where people are signing up. There's often people that are doing some classes. Obviously we're very low income, our students here. So that's not really their business, but it is something that they want to try and make sure their students have housing at some point. So yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I don't believe our city manager is here. He'll be late, and we need to reclaim some of our time, so maybe that works out. Okay, at long last, Corinne, here she is. Corinne asked to speak months ago, and they kept getting punted, so I'm happy you're here, and we can have your presentation about Gene Autry, the man and the Norg. More to follow. That's not her title, it's mine. And we have a visual display over here. You can read while the man and the Norg. Okay, the man and the Norg. Little history lesson. There we go. All right.
Okay, how do I get this display?
Just click on each slide.
You did this way to present.
You have to click that little thing on the bottom. Yep, you got it.
Got it?
Okay,
I just had one.
I'll be fast because I know everybody wants to go to that, watch the debate. So
Well-
our morgue is named after Gene Autry. It's the only one that's named after a person. Why would it be named after some TV star? So I wanted to give some background. He actually had a cowboy code that he tried to teach the kids. So when they wrote in for his picture, they got this code. Number 5, he must not advocate or possess racially or religiously intolerant ideas. He must never shoot a man first, hit a smaller man, or take unfair advantage. He must never go back on his word. So he was really trying to promote good things for children in the 30s and 40s in his movies. He came to Palm Springs and he started the Anaheim Angels baseball team in the 1960s. They were integrated right from the beginning, the team members. They trained in Baristo Park by where the main library is now. During the spring, it was, families used to come and watch the games. It was a big thing to do in Palm Springs. He purchased California's first Holiday Inn as a place to house the Angels during spring training. The hotel changed hands a few times, and now it's the Parker. It was originally the Gene Autry Hotel, and you could see, if you lived in Palm Springs, you'd see the team members bicycling from that hotel over to the park to train. He was a major artist of country western music. He was the one that made it not just country music for hillbillies, but he popularized country music. And some of his hits were these: Frosty the Snowman, Here Comes Santa Claus. He was a hero to people like Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, and Chris Christopherson. They went to Saturday movies, listened to his music, bought guitars from Sears. And Johnny Cash has a great quote: reflecting upon the great people I have known as an all-American image of goodness, justice, good over bad, nothing or no one comes closer than Gene Autry. So he was really respected. He established the Gene Autry Western Heritage Museum in 1988. It has exhibits exploring the American West and its multiple cultures. So there's one on the Chinese community. It's had exhibits on African American cowboys. This one was on reclaiming El Camino Native resistance in the missions and beyond. It had an exhibit documenting the unique contribution of Japanese American women to Western life. And past shows have shown the contributions of Russians and Italians. And way back in 1994, the museum initiated an annual Juneteenth celebration to mark the end of slavery in Texas, when they finally found out. And last year they had a big exhibit of generations of gay cowboys take over the Autry Museum. And everything, I know I'm going fast, but you have it, I printed it out for you, so. And let me see. And well, this is on YouTube. I'll just play a little of it. Johnny Cash made a song about Gene Autry.
Really?
It'll come up. Nope.
Nope.
It's not. Anyway, if you search on YouTube for Johnny Cash and Gene Autry, he has a whole song about how he was telling his young son what a great man Gene Autry was. So anyway, so he's not just some white racist TV star. He really tried to do good in the world. Thank you. Maybe sometime we can have a bus going to the Gene Autry.
The more you learn.
Melody Ranch.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe I can put this on the link.
Yeah. Thank you, Corinne. I learned so much. That's great. We have two topics tonight. This one coming from Vista Las Palmas, wanted to speak to all of 1PS tonight. Perspective on the timeshare issue, and I want to introduce Patty Marino, who wanted to come forward and give us some information.
Can I use that since I have?
You
notes?
may.
Is that okay?
Hello, and thank you very much for welcoming me. This is my first 1PS meeting, though I certainly read the monthly reports put together by our neighborhood organization, Representative Gustav. I didn't bring any colorful posters or any video. If I'd have had any idea that was a possibility, I would have definitely stepped up. But I am here to make a plea. I am the co-chair, along with Kevin Comer, of our Vista Las Palmas Neighborhood Foundation. Last year, we transitioned from being a 501c4 to being a 501c3. And my appeal is to ask the board of 1PS to take action regarding the recent decision of City Council to reverse their earlier decision regarding the shared ownership issue, and specifically the company called Picasso. I probably don't need to do a historical recap for this group about what happened and how we got here, but it is important to remember that in March 2023, when Picasso had acquired 5 homes in our community, that the City Council voted 5-0 to ban timeshare-owned ownership. That same month, our city attorney sent Picasso a cease and desist letter. And during the next 15 months, all 5 of our city council members received donations from the lobbyist that works for Picasso, a gentleman by the name of Brian Ricks. Fast forward to last month, where in the heat of summer, when not many folks are here, or some of our community is not necessarily paying attention to what's happening here, that vote changed to 3-2. Thank you very much, Mayor, for your vote against it. Many members of our neighborhood and also 1PS wrote letters to the City Council to ask them not to pass this. And it didn't feel like they were listening to us. So the ordinance allows up to 30 incremental timeshares. As I said, right now, 5 of them exist. 2 of them are in our neighborhood. And while that means that for Vista Las Palmas, we won't have any more of those for now, that's a temporary state of affairs, not just for our neighborhood, but for the entire city. And it's making a major impact in the quality of life of the residents that are here. So there are a few different steps that we could take. But because we are a 501c3 and not a 501c4, we cannot take political action, which is why I'm standing here in front of you, the board, asking them to work together to reverse this. You may be aware that Palm Springs is the only city in the state of California to enable this. Picasso sent out a press release the day that the vote happened, as though it were fantastic news. But that doesn't make Palm Springs look like the smartest city in the state.
Oops.
So we feel that 1PS is the right organization to advance the interest of the neighborhoods, as the neighborhoods are the most affected by this. Thank you.
And like any issue brought forward to 1PS and the board, we will certainly discuss it at our next meeting and be able to report back. Thank you for community input. Okay, moving forward. I would like to modify the agenda if I may. We have someone who very much needs to leave soon. That's Don Barrett. Wants to talk about our candidate forum. What an appropriate day to talk about a candidate forum, which is coming up on October 5th. Don, you have the floor. 30 seconds.
That was an interesting maneuver. Okay,
You all know there's an election coming up, right? I mean, it's news. Okay. Anyway, we have a candidate forum. And our candidate forum is for the city council seats, which is for Districts 4 and District 5. And Richard is going to bring it up to show it. So there's a copy of it here. Let me get there. We do the candidate forum on just before you can start voting. You'll be able to start voting. I think I had it I have it written down. You'll be able to start voting. It's something like the 8th. Well, you can drop off on the 8th. You can start voting on the 7th. You can drop off on the 8th. Drop off your ballot. So on the 5th, we're having a candidate forum at DeMuth Park at the community center at 1 o'clock. Like I say, it will be for Districts 4 and Districts 5. And how we do a candidate forum is you submit questions to us about that, for us to then use in that forum for asking what are the concerns of your districts. So we need questions. And the way we can do questions is, Richard?
This little picture.
Click on that picture and that will get you to the spot for submitting questions. Don't get anxious about submitting a perfect question. It's okay if it be something that's sort of rough. We need the topics as much as we need the questions. We can modify things if need be. Let's see. So if you're a neighborhood leader, if you're a NORG leader, please contact the people in your NORG and say, we need questions, and get them in, or send them in yourself or something like that.
What's the deadline for submission of questions?
That's
please?
what I was going to do.
September 20th.
I was trying to wake up my phone. It says the 20th. We prefer they be there earlier because if we get a lot of questions, it takes us a good while to process through them. So as soon as you can is helpful. The 20th is a week from this Friday, but if you can do it sooner, that would help us. So please get those in. So there we go. You mostly know that there is only one candidate in District 5. There will be a short forum and there'll be a long hour-and-a-half forum for District 4 candidates. Then there'll be a short forum for District 5, just so that David Reddick can be reintroduced to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Don, for all your work.
Yes. And also, I don't think it's been announced. Yes. Ardeen, who has been on our board for years and a lifelong resident of Ascena, has moved out of the valley. And so we wish her well, and we're going to miss her terribly. And she was chairing this candidates forum, and Don's like, I guess I can do it. So thank you for doing that. There's so many projects going at once, but thank you for taking that on and making sure this happens. It's an important event. All right. Kathy.
I'm having a board meeting, my neighborhood is not in those districts. However, as we know, a lot of the issues that will be talked about at that meeting will cut across the city. And so I'm encouraging my board members, at least, and our neighbors, to come to this, even though it's not necessarily their district.
Yes.
Because it will have an impact on, because they're council members as they get elected. So I encourage people to go ahead and attend.
Right. The communities, the room at the DeMuth Community Center will hold 100 people. So, and we have 40 here, 50, something like that. So it should be enough. And people who, as Kathy just said, people who are not from those districts still have concerns about the city. So you're welcome to come and be there. I may need a couple more volunteers for that day, but it's not absolutely clear. If you have time to volunteer and help us on that day, go to the website. There's a link for signing on to volunteer under events, and please consider doing that.
Good. Thank you, Don. Okay. We'll resume our agenda in progress now with an update on Measure J. And
Don't forget
me.
What about
No,
Tim?
we just moved him up just for that moment. You're next. Okay. Measure J, welcome Vanna. Some say 1PS is politically neutral, and often we are quiet because there's a lot of opinions and a lot of community with varying points of view. So this is an opportunity, however, that we feel is very, very important for neighborhoods. The mayor has told us many times, and a lot of you can sit down if you want. Love the color. And it goes without saying that what Measure J has done and will continue to do for the city and neighborhoods, I'm not going to waste any more time telling you. You already know. It's very important what it has done for us, and so to continue the lifespan of it would be advantageous. In the back corner by our by Officer Lieutenant Villegas, we have lawn signs, yard signs, window signs. Please take them. I don't want to cart them home, so everybody gets one if you want one. But as you know, another reason to plug Measure J is that they have offered 1PS and neighborhoods the opportunity to apply for funding for a whole host of projects that we may want to put forward. And so at the July meeting, we threw some ideas on the board of what we could possibly do. August was quiet, as you know, and so it was very quiet. In fact, the cicadas weren't even as noisy this year, so it was super quiet. But some of us have been working on projects and getting them ready to propose in 20 days. The deadline is September 30th. And so I know that there's been talk about a few projects. I don't know the status of them yet. There's been interest in doing some sidewalk repair. As you know, Measure J helped fund streets, but sidewalks is another matter. So I know Desert Highland, Cynthia's interested, and Historic Tennis Club, yes, Tempe is interested. And so you two may want to congregate fairly soon to see if you can put a proposal together. Let us know what we can do to help. I know Movie Colony East is looking at little libraries. We'd hoped every neighborhood might come forward and want a little library, you know, the little books. Haven't heard from much of anybody. So again, 20 days to kind of assemble that if people want to. I know Trino has a project, very well organized, that's going to go forward. And I'm sure there's a host of others that have probably been done independently and they're just going to go directly to Measure J. Kate's working on the entry sign at Cathedral City in Palm Springs, getting a new monument sign that was blown down by some force of nature in the past. What I've been working on personally that I'm happy about was the blade signs that you know we have in many of our neighborhoods, mostly on street signs. And what you would know is that most intersections other than Sunrise Park, Oasis, Still Soul, and Upper West Side, those three thought ahead and put blade signs at major intersections where there are traffic lights. So you're driving down Ramon or Gene Autry or what have you, and you're like, what neighborhood am I in? You wouldn't know because many of those intersections were never included. So I'm working on a proposal. It'll be 180 signs at about 50 intersections. I drove the entire town.
Wow.
It's a quiet August. In addition, because a lot of neighborhoods either don't have signs or their signs have melted in the sun or what have you, we're going to try to get 10 more per neighborhood. That could be ambitious, but that'd be 520 signs potentially. So anyway, this is going to be an expensive project, and we hope Measure J will be little sun will smile upon us here. But anyway, all this is due in 20 days, and there's a lot of process involved. So I'm just bringing this up to update you, as we promised we would get back to you on what we're working on. If there's anything you really feel needs to get in the hopper, do let us know. You know, days just go by very quickly, but we wanted you all to be aware that this is what we're working on, and then the importance of supporting Measure J, of course. So are there any questions I can take right this minute? One or two.
Chris, just to let you, if you scroll down a little bit, that little Measure J icon, people can click on that. Scroll down. Whoop.
So, yeah.
Click on that little Measure J icon. It'll take you to those projects you were just talking about.
Oh, okay.
Should.
Quicker for you to do it than me. But anyway, here's the projects that's
Well,
on this,
maybe it didn't. Okay. Oh, there's a thing that says sign up for one of our projects.
Okay.
Use that little link there.
Anyway, does anyone have a, yeah,
Is the 10 per neighborhood, is that negotiable? Because we need 25. And
so I already have a quote for about $85,000, and that's before installation. So I have no idea what's going to get approved, but 10 was a start. So we can talk about it, but it's more expensive than one might think. So, but it's important. Okay, and I know El Dorado doesn't need any more, so yeah, we'll work it all out. But we're going to go for as much as we can and see what we can get. But I know that at least one member of council likes this idea, and so we're hopeful that this gets approved. All right, I'm going to keep us moving. I don't see Rick Bowman. He's chairing the nominating committee. Real quickly, election would be December. You would be informed in November of the ballot, the slate. Anybody here wants to be on the board, step forward, let us know. But we get an early start for obvious reasons to get an early start. So that's the timeline, and Rick will give us an update at a future meeting. Okay, Tim, are you ready now? Okay. Tim is chairing our fall home tour, which is going gangbusters, and I'll let him tell you more.
Good afternoon. As many of you probably know, each year in conjunction with Modernism during the October kind of long weekend, we do a house tour. It's a major fundraiser for 1PS, and hopefully it will be this year too. We have 5 houses selected this year to be part of the tour, 2 from Vista Las Palmas, 1 from Little Beverly Hills, 1 from Historic Tennis Club, and 1 from Old Las Palmas. Ticket cost is $100. And ticket sales have been pretty good so far. We've sold about half the tickets thus far. Chances are we'll be selling out by the end of by the middle part of October. What the 2 asks I have for you all is, 1, encourage your neighbors and your friends and yourselves to go online. And Denise has been very good to send out a couple of links to the home tour. Click on that, buy tickets for you and your friends. The other is for docents, and this is where the organization really kind of steps up as far as supporting this program, is that each house needs basically 12 docents, 6 in the morning and 6 in the afternoon. So for about a 2.5, 3-hour commitment, you get a free ticket for the tour. So if you calculate it, you're making $33 an hour. So I think it's a good value. And we're also going to have, after the end, for those who participated, both the homeowners and the docents will all be attending a celebration party at one of the houses that will be featured. So I'm going to pass around a couple of clipboards. Sign up to be a docent. If you're not sure right now, again, Denise has been very good to send out a couple emails that has my email on it. I'm timscheffler@gmail.com. Shoot me your name, and you don't have to be a part of 1PS to be a docent. You can be a kind of a friend of, and but I think it's ultimately going to be a lot of fun. So docents needed, tickets need to be sold. So any help that you can do would be great. Thank you. And it's going to be October 26th, Saturday, October 26th.
Thank you, Tim, for working on that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Tim. And one thing that just came up tonight after the agenda was printed, so but you can't be. The gentleman I just was reacquainted with tonight, Bob O'Neill from Oasis del Sol, asked, "What's going on with Festival of Lights this year?" I said, "Oh, that's right. We have to talk about that." So he's agreed to share this for 1PS. Thank you.
Wow.
Smile and nod your head. Yes, that's right. So remember the balloon wrangling, and I mean, it's a fun thing. It just sneaks up on you because of the holidays. So wanted to get it out there. Now it's only September, but think about if your Norgs want to do balloons and so forth for the parade. You can communicate always through me, but now Bob is going to be our point person. So thank you. Yes, you're smiling. I see that. Good. Thank you. Okay. Our city manager has arrived, and you have a few remarks. Okay, we'd love to have you.
Thank you, Mr. President. A pleasure to be here. Good afternoon, everyone. I wish, or just in the last hour, the weather has gotten significantly worse out there. If you walk out there, there is just the smoke and the wind. And I want to tell you that your Palm Springs firefighters are out helping to fight the line fire, I believe. We have deployed one of our engine companies, which has 4 personnel on it, that we were out there helping. I was talking, actually a good friend of mine is city manager in Big Bear, and they are looking at potential mandatory evacuations of the city of Big Bear this afternoon. So it's pretty serious business, and we just wanted to offer our support if there's anything we could do. Got to evacuate people. So, but we'll have probably our firefighters there helping out maybe for the next 2 weeks or so. We'll see how it goes, but I've been talking to the fire chief. Our fire folks have been, working really closely. This is mutual aid. When any city has problems, other cities come to their aid, and there's agreements that we all do that. So let's kind of hope for the best and they can get a handle on it. And, if you live up in Big Bear, you're probably pretty nervous right now.
Scott, is there a way for us to volunteer to host anybody who has to be evacuated?
I see our emergency operations coordinator sitting over there, Danny DeSelms. He might have a couple thoughts in a minute about what we can do.
Yeah.
I reached out to their city manager to say, hey, maybe we can work with some of our hotels and get some discount hotel rates. If somebody needs a place to stay and any shelters that they have are a little bit overrun. So he was going to kind of keep me up to date if they needed any help from us. So we're kind of working through that. So we'll see what's going on, but not good. Anyway, I have a lot going on. As I'm thinking about, we've got an interesting little debate that's going to be going on this evening. I'm sure everybody's racing back to watch debate sort of stuff. But we are going into our elections. I thought maybe, Mr. Mayor, did you talk about elections at all? Or
I am
drop boxes?
for life.
Mayor for life. So, well, other than the mayor election, we do have other elections going on. And Denise was very kind to share with me some of the thoughts, just for your own thinking about what's going to be going on in the city. Of course, we're going to have our vote by mail ballots is going to start as early as October 7th, I think. That's coming up before we know it. And those vote by mail ballots, just as they have in the past, can be dropped off in front of City Hall, October 7th through November 4th.
In the lobby.
In the lobby, yeah. Or during our regular hours, 7:30 to 5:30. Vote by mail ballots can also be dropped off at City Hall on Election Day. We have other vote by mail elections. Vote by mail locations will be at our James O. Jesse Desert Highlands Unity Center and at the Palm Springs Library. We have voting locations on Election Day at the Demuth Community Center and the James O. Jesse Center and the Palm Springs Library. So those are our voting locations in the city. So, and of course, I'm reminded that if you go to palmspringsca.gov/elections, there'll be a lot of information about the elections going on there. And of course, I know Denise and Amy and everybody will be populating Engage Palm Springs with lots of this information as well. So,
Social media,
yeah. So a lot going on that. I always like to just say a word or two to everyone about, I talked about the line fire. We're working furiously. We're hoping to turn the keys over to Martha's Village and Kitchen for the Navigation Center towards the end of this month. It's very, very important to us. So we're trying to make that happen. When I come back here next month, I'm hoping to be able to say that we're moving people into that facility. So that's going on. I really should emphasize too, I know if Chief Mills was here, he would, as we talk about elections, we're taking this election very seriously in our community. And we know we're living in pretty polarizing times, and there's people that are acting kind of pretty dumb out there and don't have the best of intentions. And I can tell you that our police department is very focused. We're monitoring things. We're they're very aware of anything that we could hear that would seem unusual or untoward or any danger to our community. So we are taking this very, very seriously. And what are 52 days or something away from election day. So it's serious business for your police department and all of us. So we want to make it a safe election season. We want everybody to get out and vote. And I know one PS, I think I'm told that I haven't been here for election season, but you have a wonderful candidates forum, so I don't want to steal your thunder. Anyway, that's all I wanted to talk about, Mr. Chris. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for running from your last meeting to join us. All right, we have 20 minutes until curtain, and we have quite a few more reports. So, Lieutenant, you should be walking already. It's your turn.
Thanks, Chris.
You're welcome.
Way to put me on the spot.
Of course.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully everybody's doing good. Wonderful summertime. Just like to echo the sentiments about our firefighters here locally and throughout the state battling these fires. Please say a prayer for them that they all return home safe. That's the ultimate goal. So I definitely want to echo that sentiment. As far as what's going on in the police department, what I do need is your guys' support. We are going to be hosting our first open house. It's called Behind the Badge here at the police department. It's going to be occurring September 28th, and it'll be between 3 and 6 p.m. And the flyers I already passed out to Denise. She's going to send them out on the email listing. Please, we need a lot of support. So what we're doing this year that's changed from last year, if you guys are aware, there's a national night out. That's where the community comes together with the police department, and we get together in partnership. We typically host that event at the Palm Springs Stadium in October. Attendance unfortunately has gone down. So this year the chief chose to do an intimate setting. So we're going to be hosting an open house here at the department. What's that's going to consist of? We're going to have different units within the department doing some demonstrations, kind of interactive stuff. We're going to have a canine demonstration. We'll have SWAT do their thing. We're going to have our search and rescue with a drone. We're going to have investigations and CSI do a presentation. Our traffic team's going to do a fatal collision, and they'll be doing that presentation. We're actually going to have a shoot, don't shoot simulator as well going on. So we're going to have a lot of things going on that day here at the police department. We're also doing a department tour for people that haven't been here. So please pass the word out. We want as many people as possible to come out and interact with us on September 28th between 3 and 6 o'clock. So that's all I got to report for now. I know we're kind of short on time. I did want to introduce one of our sergeants. He's Sergeant Miguel Torres. He oversees our crimes against persons unit. I've kind of been working with him to kind of integrate him with the community a little bit more. He's been here for many years. He's from the Valley, and I'll let him kind of speak on that. So welcome, Sergeant Miguel Torres.
Yeah.
Sorry, my voice is a little deep. I'm just getting my voice back. But again, I'm Sergeant Miguel Torres, and I have to make an emphasis on that because we have another sergeant named Sergeant Michael Torres. They call us twins, and just to give you perspective, I'm the Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's a Danny DeVito. You can tell him I said that too. But again, I've been with Palm Springs Police Department for going on 12 years now, a total of 20 years in law enforcement. I started my law enforcement career in Cathedral City, and I'll make it very quick because I know we have the election that everybody wants to get to. I'm sorry, the debate going on tonight. So I am the detective sergeant. I run our investigations unit, specifically our crimes against persons unit, which is our major violent crimes. So just wanted to touch on some of the incidents that have gone on over the last few months because it's been a little busy for us. We'll start out at the end of June. We had a double homicide that was a murder-suicide in our city. Unfortunately for us, it looks like they just got off on the wrong exit and it ended up in Palm Springs. And whatever was going on in the person's mind, it just happened to be in our city. And I want to say that because it didn't have to do with any residents here in Palm Springs. It was outside residents. It just got off on the wrong exit is what it looks like. And there was some drugs involved that resulted in the double murder and then eventually a suicide. So we don't believe there's any other suspects involved. There was some good video footage that we were able to get from that to piece everything together. Make life a little bit more simpler because when no one's in the car and there's no witnesses, it's kind of hard to tell for sure exactly what happened. So the video definitely made it easier for us. We also had a homicide inside our downtown parking structure. That was another great investigation put together by our detectives and our patrol officers who contact many people on the streets. And in some of these contacts are just, it was just, probation checks where they were able to remember certain characteristics of some of the suspects that were involved in this incident. And some of the officers working that night recalled some of these certain characteristics, developed some information on the suspects and where they could be at. We conducted surveillance probably within an hour of the homicide, and we're able to get our suspects in custody with what we believe is a murder weapon involved in that downtown incident. There are some gang ties involved, and because it's an active investigation, I can't get to further detail about it. We also, just touching back, we've had some recent shootings. Most of them have been negligent discharges throughout the city. Where we show up, we find a bunch of expended casings, but no suspects or victims around, and not really any witnesses willing to come forward and kind of tell us exactly what it is that happened. We did have a shooting that did involve a 17-year-old victim. Same thing, not very cooperative in that, or further information to go on. We don't know if it was gang retaliation or just a random act of shooting. Today, we did have a stabbing where we did get a suspect in custody. It's probably hitting the media right now. Started out first thing in the morning for us. We got called in, went straight to that. Luckily, the victim was able to survive the stab wounds because he was stabbed over 20 times and survived the attack. We did get a suspect in custody. He's currently being booked at Indio County Jail now. Other than that, it's been pretty busy. We've had a few incidents here and there. I know we just recently had the Splash House event. And usually what happens when we have the Splash House event is we get some rapes that occur over the weekend with druggings and just other things involved alcohol. We did have a suspect responsible for 2 rapes that occurred over the weekend. And we're able to identify, get him into custody, and determine that he was responsible for another rape that occurred in March. During that time, the victim was reluctant because she didn't think she would be